Okay, when you hear the word concrete, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Maybe a plain gray sidewalk, a big skyscraper, maybe a highway stretching out. It probably doesn't immediately make you think of, cutting edge tech or a market that's dooming globally,
Yeah.
right? But that's exactly what we're doing today. We're taking a deep dive into the global concrete placement equipment market. Get ready. You might see concrete a bit differently after this.
Absolutely. And to help us navigate this really interesting area, we're drawing on a very detailed market forecast reports from Cognitive Market Research. And it covers, well, pretty much everything: current trends, how different regions are growing, and forecasts looking way out from 2021 right up to 2033. Our mission today really is to pull out the key insights, the most important bits, so you can get a real handle on this foundational industry without drowning in data points. And just to be clear, when we say concrete placement equipment, we mean the whole range from those massive pumps you see lifting concrete stories high,
Yeah.
the Tor specialized mixers, and the machines that lay foundations for roads, bridges, all of that.
That's a great point because concrete placement equipment might sound super specific, maybe even a bit niche, but it's actually deeply relevant to your life, to everyone's life, really. I mean, think about every new building going up, every bridge, every road, every city expanding. It all relies on this stuff. This equipment literally shapes the world around us, the places we live, work, play. So understanding what's driving this market is kind of a shortcut to understanding the bigger forces behind global development itself. Okay, let's unpack this. Where do we start? Right, let's kick off with the big picture. The global market for this equipment is showing some really solid growth. The source puts total sales revenue back in 2021 at nearly $6.6 million, almost $6.6 billion. But here's where it gets interesting. It's projected to hit almost $8.75 billion by 2025. And then it keeps climbing, expected to surge past $15.3 billion by 2033. That works out to a pretty impressive compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of about 7.3% over that whole period. So what's behind that kind of steady, strong expansion?
Well, it's fascinating when you look at the core drivers the report identifies. There are three main ones. First, you've got massive infrastructure investments happening all over the world. Think new bridges, railways, utilities, that sort of thing. Second is the sheer pace of urbanization. More and more people moving into cities means we need more housing, more commercial buildings. And third, there's constant innovation in construction itself. New techniques demanding more efficient, often more specialized equipment. If you connect those dots, this ongoing demand for concrete equipment really speaks volumes about the scale of human development, doesn't it? We're constantly building, expanding, literally pouring the foundations of our future world.
That really does put those big numbers into context. Okay, so that's the global view. If we zoom in a bit, where's the growth really concentrated? Which region is leading this surge?
Oh, without a doubt, it's the Asia-Pacific region. It's absolutely dominating the market right now. Back in 2021, its market size was already huge, just over $2.4 billion. But listen to this. It's expected to hit over $3.2 billion by 2025, and then make a massive leap to nearly $6 billion by 2033. That translates to a regional CGR of almost 8%, 7.942 to be precise.
Wow, nearly 8%. That's significantly higher than the global average you mentioned. So within Asia Pacific, who are the main players? Which countries are really driving that incredible growth?
Right, that's the key question. And the answer is, well, primarily China. China's market is expanding dramatically. It's set to more than double, actually, from just over 900 million in 2021. ETO projected over $2.3 billion by 2033. That's an annual growth rate of about 8.5%, really impressive. And India's right behind, showing very similar momentum, growing from around 417 million up to over $1.1 billion by 2033. That's a CAGR of about 8.46%. You see this massive infrastructure push and rapid urbanization reflected directly in these numbers for both countries.
And it's not just China and India leading the charge, is it?
Yeah.
It seems like there's broader strength there. Our report mentions other significant contributors, too. Japan, for instance, rising from about 291 million to over 667 million. That's still a healthy 7.47% CAGR. South Korea as well, from roughly 150 million to over 300 million, growing at about 6.7%. And then you have Australia, Singapore, Southeast Asia, Taiwan, all showing strong growth, too, mostly between 6.5% and 7.2% CAGR. It really paints a picture of a very dynamic region, fundamentally reshaping its built environment. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's turn our attention to North America. Maybe not the same explosive growth we see in Asia Pacific, but the report projects steady, significant expansion there too, right?
That's right. Steady is a good word for it. North America's market was around $1.75 billion back in 2021. It's projected to increase to over $2.25 billion by 2025 and then reach over $3.8 billion by 2033. That represents a CAGR of about 6.8% overall for the region. So definitely solid, consistent growth, reflecting ongoing development and infrastructure upgrades. And within North America, who's leading the pack there?
Well, no surprises. The United States is the dominant player by far. Its market is forecasted to grow from about $1.35 billion in 2021 to nearly $3 billion, $2.91 billion, precisely by 2033. That's a CAGR of around 6.7%. Canada also makes a notable contribution. It's growing from about $243 million to over $550 million by 2033. That's actually a slightly higher CAGR, around 7.2% for Canada. And Mexico is right in the mix too, expected to grow from roughly $160 million to almost $360 million, with its CAGR close to 7%. So yeah, sustained activity, big projects likely driving that across the continent.
Okay, interesting. Now, what about Europe? It obviously plays a crucial role in the global economy. How does its growth trajectory look in this specific market?
Europe's definitely significant. Its market size in 2021 was about $1.4 billion, just over $1.4 billion. That's expected to rise to over $1.85 billion in 2025. And the projection for 2033 is over $3.2 billion. That puts its overall CAGR at about 7.1%, so quite healthy, very much in line with the global picture. What's quite interesting in Europe, though, is the variation you see between different countries.
Okay. So not uniform growth across the board. What stands out? Any surprises or clear leaders within Europe?
Well, Germany, for example, is forecasted to have the highest growth rate among the major European economies in this sector. It's expected to expand from about $247 million to nearly $590 million by 2033. That's a strong 7.5, nearly 7.6% CAGR. That could suggest maybe significant investment in modernizing infrastructure there. The UK isn't far behind either, growing from around $154 million to over $356 million with an ACAR of about 7.35%. France also shows solid growth, projected to reach nearly $347 million from about $167 million. That's a 6.5% CAGR. Russia is also a significant player, moving from roughly $187 million to over $390 million. Spain is growing too, expected to reach about $193 million from $92 million, with a CAGR around 6.9%. Italy shows growth as well, from about $90 million to $173 million, but its CAGR is a bit lower, around 5.9%. That's actually the lowest among these major European countries mentioned. So you see this diversity. It likely reflects different national priorities, maybe different phases of infrastructure renewal across the continent.
That is interesting, seeing that variation. So strong but varied growth across the major European players. Are there other countries worth mentioning beyond those big names?
Oh, absolutely. The report details others too. Countries like Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland, they all show steady growth. Their KGRs are mostly hovering in the, 6 to 6.8% range, so still quite positive. But what's particularly noteworthy, actually, is the segment labeled Rest of Europe. That collective group is growing from about $251 million to over $650 million by 2033, and its CAGR is impressive, over 8%, 8.07% to be exact. That suggests really widespread development and investment happening beyond just the largest economies in Europe.
And 8% CAGR for the rest of Europe. That's a really strong signal. Okay, let's quickly touch on the remaining regions to complete the global picture. What about South America? How does it fit in?
South America shows healthy growth as well. The market there grew from just over $420 million in 2021 and is projected to exceed $1.15 billion by 2033. That's a CAGR of nearly 7.5%, 7.48%. Brazil is a major driver, no surprise there. It jumps from about $144 million to over $400 million with a robust 7.67% CAGR. Argentina is also significant, showing strong growth from about $52 million to over $133 million, a CAGR near 7%. And the report mentions other countries in the region generally falling within that 6.8% to 7.6% CAGR range. So good momentum reflecting ongoing development.
Right. And the Middle East, often associated with, massive destruction projects. How does its concrete equipment market shape up?
Yes, the Middle East. The market there is expanding, moving from roughly $310 million in 2021 to a projected $645 million in 2033. However, its growth rate is actually the slowest among all the regions we've looked at. The CAGR is about 5.8%. Saudi Arabia is highlighted as a key contributor, expected to grow from about $126 million to $265 million, which is about a 5.76% CAGR. Other countries like Turkey, the UAE, Egypt, Qatar are mentioned with COGRs in the 5.6 to 6.2% range, so still growing, but perhaps more tied to specific large-scale, maybe mega projects rather than the kind of broad, rapid development seen elsewhere.
Interesting nuance there.
Yep.
Okay, finally, let's wrap up the regional tour with Africa. What's the story for concrete placement equipment on the continent?
Africa's market is set for solid growth, too. It's expected to increase from just over $257 million in 2021 to nearly $600 million by 2033. That represents a KGR of about 6.6%, so respectable growth. Nigeria stands out as a strong performer within the continent, growing from about $63.5 million to over $150 million with a KGR of about 6.8%. South Africa also contributes significantly, increasing from around $110 million to nearly $250 million by 2033. That's a 6.47% CAGR. And the rest of Africa's segment is also important, collectively contributing nearly $200 million to the market size by 2033. This really reflects that widespread foundational need for infrastructure development right across the continent.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, a lot of numbers. What's the big takeaway here? I mean, the main point from our deep dive today seems crystal clear, doesn't it? The market for concrete placement equipment is just on this remarkable upward path everywhere, all regions. And it's not just some temporary blip. It's being pushed by these fundamental global forces we talked about. Huge infrastructure spending, people moving to cities, construction getting smarter. It really is a foundational industry, impacting pretty much everything.
Exactly. And that consistent, sustained demand for this equipment and, by extension, for concrete itself paints a very, very clear picture of the future. It leads to a really important question, something for you, the listener, to think about. How will this relentless need to build, to expand, continue to shape our landscapes, our cities, our planet? What are the longer-term implications of this for resources, for the environment, and, yeah, for the very nature of global development as we keep pouring the foundations for what comes next?
That's a powerful thought to end on. We hope this deep dive has maybe given you a new perspective on something as seemingly ordinary as concrete, but which truly underpins our modern world. Thanks for joining us. Keep thinking about those implications, and we'll catch you next time for another deep dive.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. You know, we move through cities, drive on these complex highway systems, look up at huge buildings every single day, and it's pretty easy to just, well, take for granted the amazing engineering behind it all. But underneath all that concrete and steel, there's this fascinating story. It's about precision, innovation, and some seriously powerful machines. So today we're taking a deep dive into that foundation, the really dynamic and maybe often overlooked world of the concrete placement equipment market.
Yeah, exactly. And it's more than just pouring concrete, right? This specific area is just so crucial. It's really a fundamental piece of modern construction. It's what literally makes so much of the global development and infrastructure growth we see possible.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive then is to kind of unpack the core dynamics driving this market. We want to explore some of the maybe surprising innovations happening and understand the key challenges shaping this vital industry. And this is all drawn from the sources you've provided, titled Concrete Placement Equipment Market Dynamics.
And for you, the listener, getting a handle on these mechanics gives you a pretty unique lens, not just on global development, but those bigger technological shifts happening quietly in industries everywhere. It gives you a different perspective, maybe, on what goes into shaping the world around us.
So, okay, let's unpack this a bit more. Concrete placement equipment. Why is it such a big deal right now? I mean, it sounds basic, but what's pushing its importance in construction today?
Well, the main driver is just the sheer scale of global infrastructure growth. It's enormous. Think about how fast cities are growing all over the world. The demand for new highways, bridges, and these incredibly complex, tall buildings. And they're not just being built. They're being built faster, taller, and, well, more efficiently than ever before.
Yeah, and specifically, things like urban development, high-rise construction, they now really rely heavily on specialized gear. We're talking powerful concrete pumps, these long boom systems. It's not just about getting concrete way up high. It's about ensuring the structural integrity at heights that, were maybe unthinkable before. It's kind of democratizing the high-rise, changing city skylines in ways we don't always stop to think about. Honestly, without this precision equipment, a lot of the modern architecture we admire just wouldn't be possible.
Right, that demand for new infrastructure, that definitely paints a picture of growth. But how does that translate to, the actual construction site? What does it mean for the folks doing the work, or I guess for the concrete itself? It basically means a fundamental shift in how construction actually works on the ground, these machines. They deliver concrete accurately, even to really hard-to-reach spots. That cuts down waste, boosts safety. And there's this intense pressure now for speed, for safety, and for structural precision. That whole combination is just reshaping the process. It's moving away from just handling raw materials and becoming something much more like a highly optimized, almost manufacturing line approach, but right there on the building site.
Okay, so it sounds like it's moving beyond just, brute force. What specifically is accelerating the demand for this equipment? Is it just the general growth, or are there other factors pushing for better efficiency and safety?
Well, one of the huge growth drivers is definitely that relentless demand for faster, safer construction methods. If you think about it, historically, placing concrete could be incredibly labor-intensive, slow, and frankly, pretty dangerous work. So what we're seeing now is automated and mechanized systems just rapidly taking over from those traditional, very manual processes. And this isn't just about going faster. It's kind of redefining the construction workforce itself. It's shifting from really physically demanding labor towards needing highly skilled tech operators, which, presents both huge opportunities and a big retraining challenge for the industry.
And what are the direct benefits you see from that shift? Like on the ground, what changes for the workers and the projects themselves?
Well, the big ones are safety and productivity. These systems significantly improve worker safety, less direct exposure to hazardous tasks, and at the same time, they dramatically boost overall productivity on the job site. It makes things move faster. So naturally, they're getting picked up more and more, especially on large-scale industrial projects, places where the sheer volume and complexity demand not just efficiency, but like incredible precision and reliability.
When I picture concrete work, I still kind of see noisy, dusty sites.
Yeah.
But it sounds like there's almost a quiet revolution happening. What's the biggest shift you're seeing in how these machines are changing the day-to-day for construction teams?
What's really fascinating, I think, is the growing focus on advanced tech trends, specifically the integration of IoT, the Internet of Things, and telematics. These machines aren't just dumb tools anymore. They're really evolving into sophisticated, intelligent systems. So to give you an idea, we're talking about systems that can monitor things in real time, like concrete flow rates, boom arm angles, even engine performance. They offer predictive maintenance alerting you before something breaks down, and GPS tracking for managing where everything is. They're becoming interconnected, almost self-aware, providing this constant stream of data about how they're operating.
That sounds like a lot of data. Is the construction industry, which, let's be honest, can be pretty traditional, is it really ready to use all that information, or is there a bit of a learning curve? And how do these digital features actually help in practice, beyond just knowing where your pump truck is?
That's a really good question. Yes, there's definitely a learning curve, but the benefits are just so compelling. They're driving adoption anyway. These features drastically improve machine uptime, meaning the gear spends more time working, less time broken down. And improving uptime isn't just, avoiding a breakdown. It's about optimizing the whole project timeline. Think about it, even a few hours of downtime during a major concrete pour, that could cost hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, in lost labor, materials, penalties. So predictive maintenance, it stops being a nice-to-have and becomes a financial necessity. And crucially, all this data lets contractors manage projects more efficiently, making smarter, real-time decisions, helps avoid costly rework or delays.
Okay, technology is clearly a big part of it. But what about sustainability? That seems to be reshaping almost every industry now. Is that happening in the concrete equipment market too?
Oh, absolutely. Sustainability is definitely shaping equipment innovation. Manufacturers are rolling out electric-powered and hybrid concrete placement machines. And it's not just about looking green. These innovations are driven by, a couple of things. First, compliance with stricter emissions rules, definitely, but also responding to practical needs, like noise controls in cities. Imagine a big construction site right in the middle of a dense urban area, replacing the roar of diesel engines with the hum of electric pumps. That drastically cuts noise pollution. It makes working at night or in sensitive areas much more feasible, and it's just better for the people living nearby too.
And is the market just focused on the big standard equipment, or is it adapting to more specific, maybe niche construction needs?
It's definitely adapting. We're seeing more custom-built solutions for niche applications, things like tunnel projects where space is super tight, or marine construction, which needs incredible precision in really difficult environments. Stuff like that is gaining real traction. It just shows how versatile the market is becoming. It's not just about generic buildings anymore. It's about engineering solutions for unique, really high-stakes challenges.
Okay, so we've got this picture of a thriving, innovative market, tech, sustainability. It sounds great. But are there any cracks in this foundation? What challenges are holding the industry back, maybe?
Yeah, that's an important point. While there's definitely growth, There are also some pretty significant hurdles. High initial investment costs, for one, and the ongoing costs of ownership maintenance, storage, transport. These often put smaller and even mid-sized contractors off from, really getting into this space or expanding much. Just to give you a sense of that financial burden, the capital needed just to buy, store, maintain, and move these sophisticated machines, it's substantial. And that really limits access for a lot of businesses. It tends to concentrate market power among the bigger players who can actually afford those investments.
And what about people? Is the human element a factor? Are there workforce challenges in this high-tech end of construction?
Oh, definitely. Even with all the fancy tech, the sector is still grappling with a pretty persistent shortage of skilled operators. These sophisticated placement systems, they need proper specialized training to run effectively and safely. And if you don't have enough qualified people, that leads straight to inefficiencies on site, and really critically, it increases safety risks. You can have the smartest machine in the world, but without the right talent operating it, it won't perform at its best. And on top of that, equipment downtime from mechanical failures, that's still a constant worry, especially under the really demanding, often harsh conditions you find on big construction sites. A breakdown right in the middle of a critical concrete pour isn't just an inconvenience. It can stop an entire project in its tracks, leads to major delays, massive cost overruns.
Right. So bringing this all together then, what's the bottom line for the concrete placement equipment market? How would you kind of sum up where it is now and where it's heading?
Well, if we step back and look at the bigger picture, yes, the market is going through this really transformative growth. It's being pushed by tech, by safety demands, by the need for efficiency. But overcoming those fundamental financial hurdles and the workforce challenges, that's going to be absolutely key to unlocking its full potential. This is dynamic balance, between the technological possibilities and the practical realities of getting things done on the ground.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, isn't it? How an industry that seems so foundational, almost ancient, like concrete, how it's grappling with such cutting-edge technology and these really deep-seated, age-old challenges all at the same time. It kind of highlights how innovation and traditional problems are connected across, well, pretty much all sectors. So for you, the listener, here's something to think about. As industries everywhere are dealing with rapid tech changes and needing new skills, how might the solutions being developed for that skilled operator shortage in concrete placement? How might those offer some surprising lessons for other sectors that are facing similar talent gaps, something to mull over?